Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Incubator Podcast. We are live at Hot Topics in Neonatology, and we are joined by a giant, Dr. Roger Soll. Roger, thank you so much.
The Dr. Roger Soll.
The Dr. Roger Soll. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Really happy to join you.
We got on air, and right before you said, I know Hot Topics better than anyone. Go.
So, Hot Topics, the current crew have been great about honoring Jerry Lucey.
For sure.
And Jerry was my mentor from day one. I did my fellowship with Jerry. Before I started my fellowship, he invited me to my first Hot Topics meeting.
Yeah,
Wow.
That's wonderful.
And it was incredible. And I don't think that you can recognize today just how different it was. He had a mind, he read not just the medical literature, he'd comb through Wall Street Journal, other experimental journals, engineering journals, and he had a broad reach. And there was no winter meeting. We've always had PASS, SPR at the time, and that drew a big audience for research. But it was like a yearly thing, and he reset the clock for the neonatal community to expect to meet in the winter, and it became the meeting in parallel, not in parallel, I guess in sequence, with the SPR. It's hard to remember all the incredible things that came out of Hot Topics meeting. So the first meeting I went to before fellowship, he was first exploring intraventricular hemorrhage, which was relatively new in our understanding based on ultrasound at the time. And so he got all the original people to present their early data on IVH. And many of the studies came from those meetings, and always the latest results. But if it was just IVH, okay, that's great. He did this for retinopathy of prematurity. He had the ophthalmologists and the neonatologists meeting together. The classification system for ROP came out of the Hot Topics meeting for meetings he arranged in and around it. Okay, so standard expectations around intraventricular hemorrhage. ROP, the early cooling trials he put up on the platform. Surfactant, I mean, that was it for several years. The current Hot Topics meeting has kept a lot of that alive. They really look for the current high-order evidence research and are fantastic about putting it up on the podium. And even the green apples and rotten apples is Jerry. That's
we
pure
were talking
Jerry.
about that on the podcast before the conference with Jay Greenspan and Kevin on the where that came from. Absolutely.
Yep. All Jerry. And the green was fun. He had a great eye for what might be coming down the pike. A lot of the oxygen monitoring stuff also came from sort of related to retinopathy. He cast his net widely. International participation was really big early in the meeting, and it still is there today. But really looking, the greatest variation gives you the greatest possibility of where new thoughts are coming from.
Yeah, we were talking about that. I'm a big fan of Jerry, and the things I like most about is how he sort of explored the phototherapy and how that came from just exploring outside the bounds of the U.S. and getting that.
His fellow came from South America to study light with him.
We did a whole number of episodes on the history
I
of
love that story.
phototherapy.
That's a great story. Do you know the famous quote when Jerry asked the fellow why he chose Vermont? He said, well, I thought it was the most like the third world of any other place in the United States.
He didn't do his homework.
Oh, no. He was probably right. There were more cows than the people at the
And
time.
it's been inspirational for us at the Incubator because when you look at this story specifically, it boils down to just translating some of the evidence from somewhere else and just being curious, just saying like, tell me how you do it and how revolutionary this path can lead you on.
Well, and this concept that lots of people across the globe are working on the same problems, and if we don't collaborate, I mean, competition is not good for I think
for our babies.
Right. I think.
But before the internet, Zoom has made things easier. But before all of that, Jerry was getting people together at this meeting, and was a fantastic catalyst for so much in our field.
And so, for you, who you are the guru when it comes to review of the evidence. What is the current state of affairs for various morbidities, outcomes, and so on? what are some of the things that have you excited to go back home and start looking at the evidence again after this meeting? Any specific topics that you feel like are in very interesting flux?
The hottest topic.
Yeah.
So I was just interested in this last session on caffeine. Got a little homework to do on that. We are trying to update some of the Cochrane work. But the one thing that impressed me was the fact that actually, certainly in Eric's presentation, it was the feeding issues that were the barriers. And I know that there's a lot of work in Sweden.
This is the NRN MOCA study.
The MOCA study, right. But, sometimes you listen in between the talk and go, oh, it's not about caffeine. It's about a developmental issue and how we handle feeding and growth in these babies. And I was recently in Montreal speaking with Annie Janvier, and she's very interested in the Swedish experience, where they send kids home very early on tubes, very successfully. And unlike my practice, don't push, we got to get to nipple feeding, we got to get beyond the breast before you go home. Understanding that that's the ultimate goal, but where does this pressure come from? And why in hospital? Now, Swedish system, a lot easier to address what the system, this issues, the support issues, but why are we cowards on that? So I'm walking away going, we need to think more about follow through in these patients and how we can optimize that. Not exactly related to caffeine, I suppose.
Yeah,
but
caffeine has been probably one of the medications with the most interesting therapeutic creep where we've gone from one indication and stretched the dosage, stretched timing, and so on. And
just hoping.
Yeah.
It's going to do it all for us.
Yeah.
Roger, thank you so much for dropping by the booth. And
since we're talking about Jerry, I want to end with the best thing he ever taught me.
Go ahead.
He said, do things you think are important with people you like to work with.
I'm going to end on that then. Thank you so much.
Fair enough.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
A real pleasure.
Our pleasure.